When we crashed, Peter shielded me and broke his leg. But while he was in surgery, I ran off without a word. The next time we met, he kicked me hard in the chest. I tried to push myself up, but I couldn't. I managed a pained smile. "Looks like you've recovered well, Mr. Thorne," I said, trying to sound like I didn't give a damn. Damn, he's still strong as hell. Felt like my stitches had torn. He almost kicked the shit out of the one good kidney I have left. "Richard, it's a good thing you ran off back then," Peter said, looking down at me with cold eyes. "Otherwise, I wouldn't have recovered so quickly." I got it. He was saying I was so hateful that the sheer rage gave him the will to live. Hate is a powerful motivator. Peter probably spent his nights doing extra physical therapy, just dreaming of the day he could tear me limb from limb. I bit my lip. Finally, I managed to get to my feet. "Is that so? No need to thank me. Just have your people apologize to my friend." I glanced at the boy hiding behind Peter. Peter's leg might have healed, but his taste in people had taken a nosedive. This kid was a real piece of work, acting all high and mighty with Peter's backing. He'd taken over our shop and, instead of just telling us the rent was going up, he got right in Ryan's face and called him a filthy mute. I'd rushed over and grabbed his finger, about to snap it, when Peter sent me flying with a single kick. Now, Peter's bodyguards had Ryan pinned. Ryan's face was beet red with anger, but all he could manage were choked, frustrated whimpers. "You knew he was with me, and you still touched him." Peter's gaze was cruel. "Richard, don't think for a second I'm going to spoil you like I used to." I wanted to laugh and say I never thought you would, but the laugh wouldn't come. I just lowered my eyes. He insulted my friend. Couldn't let it go. Peter scoffed. "Friend? It's more than that, isn't it? You abandoned me at the hospital 2 years ago, dropped off the face of the earth, all for this piece of trash?" He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, grabbing my collar and pulling me up. "I'm curious," he hissed. "If I cripple him too, will you just abandon him like you did me?" His face was so close I could feel the heat of his angry breath. He wasn't just talking. He was serious, and he could absolutely do it. Of course, anyone who gets close to me has bad luck. The second they leave, their fortunes turn around. With the power and money Peter had now, crushing us would be easier than squashing 2 ants. "Mr. Thorne, calm down," I said, forcing a smile. "We'll be out in a couple of days. We won't be an eyesore for you much longer." Peter let go of me and lit a cigarette. The gray smoke swirled around his face, obscuring his expression. He flicked his finger, signaling the bodyguards to release Ryan. "You're not paying rent, so you're moving out now," he said. Ryan rushed over and tried to lift my shirt. Luckily, it was winter and I was wearing thick layers. I grabbed his hand before he could expose the scar. I turned back to Peter. "We have too much inventory in the warehouse. We have nowhere to move it today." A year ago, Ryan and I had run off to this tiny, remote town and pooled our money to open a small general store. Business was just starting to pick up. Then the landlord showed up with Peter and his crew, announcing that Peter was our new landlord. Our new landlord had taken one look at my face and told us the rent was doubling. Doubling the rent would put us deep in the red. Peter had stooped to coming all the way out here to buy a dilapidated shop with zero potential for appreciation. He was taking his revenge on me very seriously. Peter glanced at Ryan's hand on me, his tone growing even colder. "The street is a big place." I gave a dry laugh. "Put it on the street? How is that any different from a charity giveaway? The old folks in this town would have it cleared out before sunrise. Surely Peter wouldn't be so heartless as to leave us with absolutely no way out, would he?" I held on to a sliver of hope. My eyes crinkled into a smile. "Mr. Thorne, you're a bigger man than that. For old time's sake, could you give us a couple of days?" "Fuck," I cursed under my breath, a cigarette dangling from my lips. Ryan and I were squatting on the curb, staring at a mountain of cardboard boxes. The cold wind howled. A few old men and women were gathered about 50 feet away from our stuff. They were watching us with hungry eyes, like they were waiting for disaster relief supplies. I shook a cigarette out of the pack and handed it to Ryan. "Looks like we're pulling an all-nighter. I'll find a new place first thing in the morning." Ryan poked me in the side and started signing. He'd lost his voice 2 years ago and was self-taught in sign language, which he did with the frantic energy of a kid at a rave. Are you okay? Should we go to the hospital? I'm fine, I said. Not gonna die just yet. That guy, he was your boyfriend 2 years ago? I blew out a smoke ring and looked down. Not really. More like a benefactor.
Un patron.
And now, an enemy. Does he know the truth about the car crash 2 years ago? Ryan signed frantically. That your body is like this because of him. He doesn't know. The cold air scraped my throat. I caught my breath and said quietly, and he's never going to. Later that night, I told Ryan to sleep in our van. I wrapped myself in a blanket and leaned against a stack of boxes. I didn't mean to get lost in memories. It was just so cold in the early morning hours. To keep myself from falling asleep, I thought about the day I met Peter. It was cold like this back then, too. I'd just gotten the crap beaten out of me and had barely managed to crawl out of a ditch onto the road before collapsing. Just as I was about to freeze to death, Peter appeared before me. He was wearing black leather shoes and a black, knee-length trench coat, perfectly tailored, tall and long-legged. I cracked my eyes open and thought he was the Grim Reaper, here to collect my soul. A grin spread across my mouth, which was caked with snow and mud. Heh, this Grim Reaper is handsome as hell. I'm willing to go with you, I mumbled, half dead. Peter later told me he thought I was trying to scam him for insurance money. I'd laughed. You ever seen a scammer who gets himself beaten half to death and then lies in the middle of the road? Besides, scammers just want money. Why would one be willing to go with you? Peter couldn't stand it when I laughed. When I did, it had an immediate effect on him. He'd pin me against the floor-to-ceiling window, his hands sliding up my shirt. Then why did you? I was robbing you. I'd cut him off, shamelessly pushing him down onto the sofa. Not for your money, just for you. He'd look at me deeply, then flip us over, taking control again. Peter had this cool, pale complexion and a face that screamed aloof and noble. But with that ascetic look, he'd fuck me half to death every night. I'd managed to bluff my way through, but the price was steep. Strange. If it was so painful, why does thinking about it now still make me smile? I lifted my numb right hand and patted my own cheek. Richard, don't be so pathetic. My hand came away cold and wet. I slowly opened my eyes. A thin layer of white fluff now covered the road. It was snowing. Someone was walking toward me through the curtain of snow. Black leather shoes, a black knee-length coat. I gave a weary smile. Am I still dreaming? Richard, the person in front of me said, looking down at me. Do you regret it? Peter was never one to smile. When he was quiet, the temperature around him seemed to drop a few degrees. Now, standing over me, he looked even more severe, like some righteous, handsome judge sent to punish wayward mortals. I looked up at him. Snowflakes landed on my eyelashes. I knew what he wanted to hear, but I couldn't say it. Leaving you? I blinked, and a snowflake fell into my eye. I don't regret it. The snow melted in my eye. I saw the fingers of Peter's hand, hanging by his side, twitch. Then he clenched them into a fist. Ha, he chuckled softly. Remember what you said today. Peter dropped his cigarette butt on the ground and crushed it with his shoe. Richard, one day you'll come back, admit you were wrong, and beg for my forgiveness. And that day will come very soon. How ridiculous. The last time Peter appeared like this, he saved my life. This time, he was here to ruin it. I had no doubt about Peter's ability to follow through. So when a dozen landlords in a row turned me down, I wasn't surprised. Ryan slumped onto a box, dejected. I clapped him on the shoulder and forced a smile. It's not a big deal. Don't look so down. You go make the deliveries for the orders we already took. I'll figure out what to do with the rest of this stuff. The van was secondhand. Took Ryan 3 tries to get it started. He signed at me, "Don't forget to take your medicine." I closed the door for him and waved. "Don't worry. Drive safe." After watching the van trail black smoke down the street, I sorted the remaining inventory by category and started selling it right there on the sidewalk. No shop? Fine, I'll run a street stall. Once I sell all this, I'll find a new place to start over. I had just written the prices on the cardboard boxes when a crowd started to form. A lot of the household items were cheaper than the supermarket. In one morning, I sold a quarter of my stock. I was just getting into a rhythm when a few burly guys pushed their way through the crowd. Who said you could sell stuff here? They weren't friendly. The one speaking was the owner of the big supermarket nearby. He was probably pissed that my cheap prices were stealing his business. I pulled out a cigarette and offered it to him.
Man.
See anything you need? I'll give you the wholesale price. Wholesale my ass. As he cursed, they raised the baseball bats in their hands. You sell one more thing, and we'll smash all this shit to garbage. The customers waiting to pay scattered in fear. That's when I noticed the black Bentley across the street. The rear window was down, and a man sat in the shadows watching the show. A pale wrist extended from the car, a finger tapping ash from a cigarette. I recognized the watch on his wrist, a Vacheron Constantine. Peter used to take it off every night, afraid it would press against me. He'd place it on the nightstand next to the half-piece of jade I wore on a faded red string. Our worlds were a universe apart, yet they had once bizarrely shared the same bed. Just like him and me. A baseball bat poked my chest, right where I was kicked yesterday. I winced. I stuck the cigarette I'd offered him between my own lips. Lowering my gaze, I said, "Get it off me, and get lost. I don't want to fight." It wasn't that I couldn't win. It was that I couldn't afford the medical bills. "Hey, you look all delicate and girly, but you've got a mouth on you." The man's face jiggled as he gave a sleazy laugh. "A little thing like you probably can't even last 3 minutes in bed, let alone take a beating." Ha ha ha. Blood rushed to my head. Couldn't hold back. I grabbed the bat, twisted it out of his grip, and while he was laughing like an idiot, I shoved it into his mouth. He froze for a second, then screamed, spitting out a mouthful of blood and a few teeth. "You motherfucker. Boys, get him." Bat swung at my head. I dodged a few blows, but then someone kicked the back of my knee, forcing me to the ground. As I looked up, I caught a glimpse of the parked Bentley out of the corner of my eye. The rear window was slowly closing. In that instant, a heavy blow landed squarely on my back. Excruciating pain exploded through me. I gritted my teeth, planting a hand on the ground and ducking my head to hide the cold sweat breaking out on my face. That window was now completely shut. My heart plunged as if in freefall. Suddenly, all the fight went out of me. "Peter, someone else is getting rid of me for you. You'll be just as satisfied, just as happy, won't you?" The pain I was bracing for never came. A long, sharp siren blast stunned the chaotic crowd. A fleet of city enforcement vehicles followed a police car, instantly surrounding us. "Nobody move," a cop shouted as he got out. "This is a public brawl. You're all coming with us." 2 officers pulled me to my feet. My vision swam with white spots. I squeezed my eyes shut, then shamelessly said, "Officer, can you help me move my stuff to the station too? It's not safe to leave it on the street." The officer scowled. "What do you think the police station is, your personal warehouse?" A city enforcement officer chimed in, "You were obstructing the sidewalk. We have to confiscate your goods." As they shoved me into the cop car, I yelled over my shoulder at the city officers, "A bunch of those boxes are fragile. Please handle with care, guys." The car door slammed shut with a bang, cutting off their curses. In the car, I pulled out my phone to text Ryan, but an officer confiscated it after I'd typed 3 words. The heater in the police car was blasting. I leaned my forehead against the window, feeling drowsy. In the rearview mirror, trailing the line of official vehicles, was a black sedan. Was that Peter? Was he trying to save me? Or was he hoping I'd rot in a cell for the rest of my life? I smiled bitterly. It had to be the latter. In the interrogation room, the officer tapped his pen on the table. "Those guys say you started it." "They were the ones who came looking for trouble," I replied. "Who can prove that?" "The guy's face is covered in blood, and he lost 4 teeth. Where are you hurt? Where are you bleeding? Lift up your shirt and let us see." I glanced at the one-way mirror in front of me and fidgeted with the hem of my shirt. The person who could prove my innocence was probably standing on the other side of that glass right now. but he wouldn't help me. Suddenly, there was a knock on the interrogation room door. After a few whispered words, the officer stepped out. I heard familiar footsteps. Peter walked in, calm and unhurried. He looked as impeccable as ever. I, on the other hand, looked more pathetic each time we met. "Do you regret it?" he asked. I remained silent. My mind wandered. Where can I run where Peter will never find me? Peter continued, "You knocked out 4 of that guy's teeth. At $20,000 a tooth plus other damages, you owe him at least 100 grand. Otherwise, you're facing detention. Do you have the money?" I told the truth. "No." "Richard," Peter said, his voice cold and dripping with sarcasm, "you're always so impulsive. Just like 2 years ago, when you foolishly thought I'd be a cripple for life, that I'd be of no more use to you. Is that it?" "No, that's not how it was. But once you've been judged, even silence can feel like a confession." Peter's hand came to rest on the back of my neck, like a hawk seizing a rabbit. "Think about what you've done," he whispered. "You need to be taught a lesson." The next day, I understood what lesson Peter had in mind. 37 days in detention. The maximum penalty. Ryan was denied visitation rights. I couldn't get my medication. After my kidney removal surgery, I'd never gotten the proper nutrition. I was still anemic, and my blood work only stayed normal with medication. 37 days without it. By the time I get out, I might really not be able to last 3 minutes. On the 38th day, the moment I walked out, I saw Ryan. His eyes were red, and his hands were a blur in front of my face. "You look terrible. It's all my fault. I'm useless. I tried everyone I could think of, but I couldn't get your medicine to you. We're going to the hospital right now. You can have my blood." I balled up my fist and gave him a gentle punch on the chest. "I know what my blood type is, you idiot," I said with a laugh. "You want to kill me? It's not your fault you couldn't get the meds in." It was Peter pulling strings. I knew it. "Chin up," I told Ryan. "Come on, let's go get our stuff." But when we got to the city enforcement office, our boxes were gone. A staff member handed me a piece of paper. "We don't have space to store your things here. Luckily, a kind-hearted businessman offered to store them for you, free of charge. The warehouse address is on this paper. You can go pick them up yourselves." Ryan and I stared at the address on the paper, stunned. It was the warehouse of our old shop. The kind-hearted businessman was Peter. When we arrived, the warehouse door was wide open. Peter was sitting on a wooden chair in the center of the warehouse. His long legs were in the light, his upper body shrouded in darkness. He looked like a predator, patiently waiting for his prey, confident of his victory. I took a deep breath and walked in, my smile full of sincerity. "Mr. Thorne, thank you so much for helping us out. We'll move our things now, and we'll be out of your sight for good." With that, Ryan and I picked up a box and started to leave. "Richard," Peter's voice stopped me in my tracks. Several black-suited bodyguards moved to block the exit. "Do you regret it?" With my back to him, I raised my voice. "Of course I do. I regret getting into a fight. But I've learned my lesson and turned over a new leaf. Anything else?" he asked. "Nope," I answered quietly. "Good." Peter sneered and waved the bodyguards away. "Weren't you going to move? Then you'll do it yourself." Hearing this, Ryan picked up a box to carry out, but was slammed against the wall by a bodyguard. The box crashed to the floor, a case of liquor shattering and spilling everywhere. I shook my head at Ryan, signaling him not to worry. Then, in silence, I picked up a box and started walking toward the door by myself. Over 70 boxes, 120 meters back and forth. It was below freezing, but soon sweat was pouring down my face. My pace slowed. Peter didn't rush me. He always had excellent patience. Right now, he was watching, impassive, as I tried to lift a box, then set it back down, unable to bear the weight. "Mr. Thorne," I gasped, leaning against the boxes, forcing myself to stand straight. "A customer is a guest. Can't you even spare a glass of water for your guest?" Sweat dripped into my eyes. My chest ached, the pain radiating through my whole body. I looked up and saw, through my blurry vision, that Peter's expression had changed. He frowned slightly, a look of confusion on his face as he stared at me. Age. So cheap. Can't even ask a simple question. Does he really hate me that much? I waved a hand, my smile strained. Don't be angry, Mr. Thorne. I'll get back to it. I didn't finish. Bright white spots suddenly appeared in my vision. The next second, the gray concrete floor was spinning up to meet my face. I instinctively closed my eyes, then opened them again. How strange. Why was Peter rushing toward me? And why did he have such a terrified look on his face? It was as if he was afraid I was going to die. Richard. No way. I could have sworn I heard Ryan calling my name. I opened my eyes and saw Ryan's face. You can talk again? I mumbled, disoriented. Ryan didn't seem to hear me. He frowned and pulled me out of bed. We have to go now or it'll be too late, he whispered urgently. Gus is going to sell your kidney. I was dreaming about the past. A time when Ryan could still speak and I still had all my organs. Ryan shoved a wad of crumpled bills into my pocket. You have the shittiest luck, he cursed. Why'd you have to have some rare blood type? First they take your blood, and now they're after your damn kidney. Gus is supposed to be your godfather. What a fucking monster. Gus's full name was Gus Keller. He was 45 the year he took me and Ryan in. By then, he was already the top dog in the old part of Northwood City. He raised me, but he didn't give a damn if I lived or died. I dropped out of school at 15 and started learning his trade. Staging accidents for insurance fraud. One time I got hurt and went to the hospital. A blood test revealed I was Rh negative, AB type. The way Gus looked at me changed after that. He had a lot of guys under him, a sprawling network of informants. Beggars, thieves, crooks of all kinds, they all had to pay him tribute. Money if they had it, information if they didn't. He'd just heard that the scion of a prominent family in Northwood was sick and needed Rh negative AB blood. And so, I became a human blood bank. For 6 whole years, I was Gus's cash cow. This time, Ryan had overheard Gus on the phone. The sick kid's kidneys were failing. He needed a transplant. Ryan pushed me out the door. Go. And don't ever let him catch you. I took a step and missed, falling into nothingness. My body jolted, and I slowly woke up. I opened my eyes to see Ryan jump up from his chair and bolt out of the room. Idiot. Doesn't he know there's a call button? A few seconds later, a doctor rushed in. A patient with a single kidney can't do heavy manual labor. Didn't you know that? I grinned. I know. You're severely anemic. We don't have any Rh negative blood, so we can only manage it with medication. Get some rest. Thanks, Doc. The doctor turned and left. Ryan bowed at his back. Hey, I called to him. How'd you get me here? Did Peter find out about my condition? Ryan sat on the edge of the bed and signed. No. When you passed out, that guy was scared stiff. He wasn't paying any attention to me. I just picked you up, threw you in the van, and drove straight to the hospital. He probably didn't even realize what was happening. I stuck a hand out from under the covers and gave him a thumbs up. Then I slowly sat up and threw back the blankets. Let's go. Time to check out. Ryan wouldn't let me, pushing me back down on the bed. There was a loud bang. The door to the room flew open and slammed against the wall. Peter walked in slowly. His lips were pressed into a thin line, his eyes dark and menacing. Please leave, he said coldly to Ryan. Ryan squared his shoulders and launched into a flurry of angry signs at Peter. In the end, bodyguards had to drag him out of the room. What's wrong with you? Peter asked, his brow furrowed, his voice tight. I clenched my fists under the covers to stop the burning in my eyes and the lump in my throat. Pathetic, aren't you? I told myself. You have no right to feel sorry for yourself. So I just smiled nonchalantly. It's nothing. I didn't get enough to eat in there, so I fainted from hunger. Thanks for your concern, Mr. Thorne. Peter's frown deepened. Impossible. I specifically told them to. He stopped mid-sentence. Suddenly, it was as if a thought struck him. Did someone hit you? Peter came over and grabbed my wrist. Take off your clothes, he commanded. My heart was pounding. I tried to act calm. No, you're imagining things. I'm fine now. I can be discharged immediately. Peter's fingers were like iron. I struggled for a moment, wincing in pain. Before I could protest, he let go and stepped back. I should be grateful. Richard, stop being so dramatic. I lifted my chin and said, trying to sound carefree, we don't want the rest of the stuff we couldn't move. Consider it payment for storage. From now on, we'll go our separate ways. It's not enough. I froze. What? Peter's face was dark, a storm of anger brewing in his eyes. He moved closer, his voice low and deliberate. 4 years ago, I saved you. I took you home. 2 years ago, in the car crash, I shielded you. I would have given my life for you. And what did you do? Where were you when I might have been dying? You ran. Peter's eyes were red, his teeth clenched in fury. He backed me against the bed, his hand closing around my neck. You owe me. How are you ever going to pay me back? Couldn't. So I let him squeeze. Just when I thought I was finally going to die, Peter suddenly let go. He leaned over me, staring intently, and said in a hoarse voice, Richard, you'll never be able to repay what you owe me in this lifetime. Don't even think about running away. Peter was right about everything. I could never repay him. The night Ryan woke me up, I took the few $1,000s he had scraped together from Gus over the years and ran. I fled to the south side, where I was cornered by a local gang. They took my money, then tried to rip the red string from my neck. I wouldn't let them. A dozen of them beat me, kicking me into a filthy ditch by the side of the road. Then I crawled out and met Peter. He took me home. He had his foreign family doctor treat my injuries. His house was warm, spacious, and spotlessly clean. So clean I was afraid my breathing would dirty the air. But Peter didn't mind. He let me sleep in his soft bed. I had several broken bones back then, and my body ached terribly. But I couldn't stop smiling. I felt like meeting Peter was the luck I had saved up over 18 miserable years. I dropped out of school too early, so after I healed, Peter hired tutors for me. After a while, he paid my way into a decent private university on the south side. I hugged my new backpack, grinning like an idiot. A punk like me going to college, I said. I'm gonna brag about this for the rest of my life. Peter ruffled my hair and pulled me in front of a full-length mirror. You don't look like a punk at all. He was right. I didn't. The clothes I wore were custom made by Peter. Expensive fabric, perfect fit. My face had filled out a bit. I no longer looked like I was starving. My eyes sparkled. The defiant swagger I used to have had been replaced by a vibrant energy. Peter looked at our reflection, then reached out and pinched my right cheek, where a dimple appeared. Everything you missed in your first 18 years, I'll give to you. I'll raise you all over again, he said, completely serious. Call me Daddy. The young man in the mirror blushed and closed his eyes, calling him a pervert. Back then, I thought Gus would never find me. I thought I could stay by Peter's side forever, be his sidekick for life. But my face was wet. It must be from the choking and coughing. Just a physical reaction. I'm not sad. Really. Not at all. Then why does my heart hurt so much? So much it's hard to breathe. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Now, and for the rest of my life, that's all I can say. Don't you dare think you can get away with just 3 words. With that, Peter threw me over his shoulder and strode out of the hospital room. Dizziness and nausea washed over me. In a daze, I heard someone trying to stop him. Sir, the patient can't be discharged. We're transferring him. Peter's voice rumbled through his chest, vibrating up to my throat. He needs a full-body examination. No, I struggled desperately. Peter, put me down. The man beneath me paid no attention. I kicked him several times in the chest and stomach, but he didn't even pause. He carried me all the way to the underground parking garage and shoved me into the back of the Bentley. He blocked the door, then turned and yelled at his bodyguard and driver, "Get lost." I clawed at the crack in the door, trying to squeeze out. "Help!" I screamed at them. "Help me!" Peter sneered, climbed into the car, and pinned me down. "Richard, no one can save you but me." I was so cold I started to shiver uncontrollably. Force wasn't working. Time to try being soft. I begged him in a low voice, "Boss, be the bigger man. Let me go today. Count it as saving me one more time. Call me spineless, shameless, whatever. Just throw me out of this car. Just don't get involved with me again. Please, Peter. It was dark in the car. Peter's dark eyes glinted. Save you? He said almost cruelly. Then why would I have told them to get lost? The next moment, his mouth crashed down on mine. He must have hated me so much. It wasn't a kiss, it was a bite. The taste of blood filled my mouth. I pushed him away with all my might. Staring blankly at the roof of the car, I tilted my head back, exposing my neck completely. Right here, Mr. Thorne, I said, my voice hoarse. Bite here. Just kill me if it'll make you feel better. Richard. Peter was at his wit's end. Don't push me to fuck you right here, he threatened, his voice a mix of restraint and madness. You're the one pushing me, I said, my voice trembling. Peter, I'm begging you, let me go. Forget about me. Peter's expression was grim, the muscles in his jaw tight. He was about to say something when the Bentley jolted violently, the front end smashing into the garage wall. A car had rear-ended us without slowing down. The screech of tires echoed through the garage. After a few loud revs, the car behind us went silent. I got out of the Bentley with Peter. The unmarked van behind us had its high beams on, shining directly in our faces. I winced and closed my eyes. Then I heard a voice I never wanted to hear again. Long time no see, Gus said as he got out of the van, his tone full of meaning. My dear son. The color drained from my face. I was afraid of Peter finding me. I was afraid of Gus finding me. But what I feared most was Gus finding out that Peter and I were still connected. He had already ruined me. I couldn't let him ruin Peter too. I gritted my teeth and glared at Gus. What do you want now? Your old man missed you. You ran off 4 years ago, and then you did it again 2 years ago. As he spoke, Gus kept one hand half-stuffed in his pocket. I recognized the shape of the object in there from my teenage years. It was one of Gus's homemade guns. Richard, I suggest you stop running. Stick with your old man. I'll take care of you for life. Bullshit. He wanted to drain my blood and pick my bones clean. This is between us. It has nothing to do with anyone else. I forced myself to stay calm and looked at Peter. You should go. Hey, don't go. Gus's smile was sinister. Finding you was all thanks to this handsome fellow here. Just then, a boy got out of the back of the van. Peter frowned. Caleb? I remembered him. He was the one who had come to the shop with Peter and called Ryan a filthy mute. Gus smiled at me. This young man knew we were looking for you and was kind enough to lead us here. What a coincidence. Caleb pointed at me, his face full of indignation. Peter, I told you he was no good, he said to Peter. Punks like him need to be taught a lesson. How could you break up with me because of him? Shut up, Peter roared, silencing Caleb. Caleb was a punk who deserved a beating, but he didn't deserve to die for it. I forced a smile. Why would he break up with you because of me? Mr. Thorne and I barely know each other. I pushed at Peter's chest. Go on, get out of here. Weren't you two all lovey-dovey before? This isn't the place for a lover's quarrel. Just go. I don't know which words hit a nerve. He grabbed my wrist, his grip like a vice. You're right, I don't know you, he bit out. So you have no right to push me away. You don't actually think I was looking for you, trying to make you say you regret it because I wanted you back. Do you? Peter let out a contemptuous laugh, but there was no humor in his eyes. You can train a dog in 2 years. An ungrateful stray like you deserves to be abandoned. To know what it feels like to be kicked to the curb. I stared at him, stunned. As he continued, Richard, I was trying to trick you into coming back just so I could throw you away, too. Lies. It was all lies. My ears were ringing. My throat was tight with pain. I twisted my lips into a bitter smile. Suddenly, I felt like I'd been a complete idiot this whole time. The words that had been seared into my heart were now being ripped open, bleeding. I would have given my life for you. You don't look like a punk at all. Everything you missed in your first 18 years, I'll give to you. I'll raise you all over again. No one can save you but me. Richard, you'll never be able to repay what you owe me in this lifetime. I can't repay you. So you're just going to trample all over me? Peter turned his head away, refusing to look at me. Didn't you want me to let you go? Now you can get lost. Gus opened the van door. "Let's go, son." Before the words were even out of his mouth, the sound of police sirens echoed from the garage exit. A voice boomed through a megaphone. To the kidnapper inside, "You are surrounded. Put your hands up and walk out of the exit now." The police repeated the command from outside. Gus cursed. He grabbed Caleb by the hair and slammed him against the van door. "Did you fucking call the cops?" Caleb was terrified, snot and tears streaming down his face. "It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I walked over." "Gus, let him go. I'm the one you want." Gus wasn't so scared he'd lost his mind. He shoved Caleb away and pushed me into the van. "Just cops. We'll just ram our way out. The buyer's all set up. Just like last time, we'll fly straight out of the country for the surgery." He got into the driver's seat and looked back with a cold smile. "Son, you've got some valuable parts in you." I said nothing. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of several SWAT officers out of the corner of my eye. The police had anticipated Gus would try to break through. They were planning to take him down right here in the garage. The moment a sniper rifle was raised, Caleb spotted the officers. "Help!" he cried, running toward them. "Shit!" Gus cursed, got out of the van, and fired a shot at Caleb. Caleb fell. Another group of officers suddenly appeared behind Peter, trying to escort him to safety. Gus was seeing red. He turned the gun on Peter, about to fire again. I launched myself out of the van and tackled Gus to the ground. "You're not killing anyone else." I held him down, struggling for the gun. In the chaos, I heard footsteps closing in. "Don't move!" And Peter's terrified roar. "Richard!" Bang! Bang! 2 gunshots exploded next to my ear. In that instant, all sound in the garage seemed to vanish. Only Peter's trembling, hoarse voice remained. "Richard, get up. Don't scare me." When the police lifted Gus's heavy body off me, I realized the second shot had been fired by an officer. What about the first one? I stared blankly as Peter knelt beside me. He took off his coat and pressed it hard against my stomach. "The first shot hit me. It doesn't even hurt." "Why is Peter shaking?" "Peter." I coughed up blood, my voice a whisper. "You always said I could never repay you." I managed a weak smile. "Today, I think I saved you too. Can I pay you back with my life? Is that enough? If it is, then let's not meet in our next life." My consciousness was fading. My eyes were getting heavy. My voice dropped. "I regret it, Peter. If I hadn't met you back then, if I hadn't let you take me away, things would have been better." Peter froze. His trembling lips parted slightly. I finally admitted I regretted it. "So why isn't Peter happy?" He pulled me into his arms. So tight. He's squeezing the soul right out of me. I floated up into the air. I saw an ambulance drive in. At the hospital, Peter was stopped outside the operating room. He stood in the middle of the stark white hallway, covered in blood. Terrifying and pathetic. Ryan came running from the end of the hall, his face a mess of tears and snot. "Ugh! Oh!" He grabbed Peter's collar, his mouth forming guttural, incoherent roars. Peter just hung his head in silence. I don't know where Ryan found the strength, but he slammed Peter against the wall. His hands flew in a desperate, angry sign. Peter couldn't understand. I did. Where did the bullet hit him? He only has 1 kidney. If it hit that, he's not going to make it. A doctor pushed the door open. "Are you the patient's family?" he demanded. "The patient only has 1 kidney. Why didn't you say so earlier?" Peter looked like he'd been struck by lightning. He shot his head up. "1 kidney? What do you mean?" The doctor didn't answer, turning back into the operating room. Peter scrambled to his feet like a man possessed, grabbing Ryan and shouting, "How can he only have 1 kidney? He was fine 2 years ago. What happened to him? Maybe he pushed the mute kid too far." Ryan punched Peter square in the face. Peter was stunned. He didn't fight back. Ryan seemed too embarrassed to hit him again. He glanced at the red light above the operating room door, then squatted down by the wall and started typing on his phone. "I floated over." I saw what he wrote. "The car crash you were in 2 years ago. It wasn't an accident. 2 years ago. The car crash wasn't an accident. The car that hit us was driven by Gus. He got out of his car slowly that day. Through the shattered window, he said to me, 2 years. You made your old man look long and hard for you. He'd been searching for me for 2 years. He'd only managed to find out that Ryan had tipped me off and helped me escape. But no matter how much he beat him, Ryan refused to say where I was. Finally, he lost it. He shoved a red-hot piece of coal into Ryan's mouth. You're a loyal kid. Huh? If you won't talk, then you'll never fucking talk again. 2 years after I ran, Ryan was mute. Because of me. Gus found a bank card on Ryan. It was one I'd had him secretly open so I could send him money on holidays. Eventually, Gus traced the bank transfers and found me. He had his men drag me out of the Bentley. Not hurt. Huh? Lucky you, he'd said. But I can't say the same for your friend in the car. I was losing my mind. What the hell do you want? I'll give you 2 choices. 1, you come with us, go abroad, and donate a kidney. I'll help you get him to a hospital. He might even live. 2, you leave and I'll part him out and sell him for scrap. Gus glanced at Peter, who was unconscious in the car, and smiled. Choose. I had no choice. I never did. I'll go with you, I said. But I need to see him get to the hospital, see him go into surgery. Only when I saw the red light of the operating room turn on did I let Gus drag me away. I spent the entire 10-hour flight praying. Praying that Peter wouldn't die. Praying that he would be able to walk again. That he'd be okay. So when he kicked me at our reunion, I was actually happy. I really was. Peter had saved me. He'd given me the 2 best years of my life. He didn't die because of me. He wasn't crippled because of me. He was okay. Completely okay. That was so good. But it would have been even better if he had just kicked me and left. Then I wouldn't be in pain. And neither would he. Right now, Peter looks like he can't breathe from the pain. He's holding Ryan's phone. His hands shaking so badly he can barely hold on. Richard. Richard. He slumps to the floor, all his composure gone, repeating my name over and over. I didn't know. I didn't know any of it. How could this have happened? You're such an idiot. Such an idiot. Peter looks up at the operating room door, his voice breaking. Richard, you have to be okay. From now on, I'll protect you. I'll take care of you. He says, just give me one more chance. The operating room door suddenly opens. The doctor says urgently, the patient needs a massive transfusion. Which of you relatives is Rh negative AB type? Ryan just shook his head, lost. Then he let out a loud sob. I floated over and squatted next to him, amused. You look so ugly when you cry, kid. Peter strode over to the doctor and pushed him back towards the operating room. Go save him. I'll find the blood. Just go. His hands trembled as he dialed his phone. Then he yelled into it. Check every hospital for Rh negative, AB type blood. If you can't find any, offer a high price for donors. Fly it in. Go now. I drifted over to Peter, really wanting to tell him, stop looking. It's better if I just die like this. I'm so tired. Abandoned by my parents as a baby, I had to cry my lungs out just to not freeze to death. I got picked up, but by a monster. Then I had to fight so hard to stay alive, to make money without doing bad things, to not get beaten. After I escaped from overseas, I found Ryan. I had a new reason to fight. I had to get him treatment to make sure he could live a good life. I've been fighting and fighting and fighting, but I could never seem to make things better. Now that I'm dying, I actually feel relieved. Peter, don't save me, because I don't want to owe you anything more. The 3rd time the doctor came out to say I might not make it, Peter's people showed up with several bags of blood. A few hours later, I was in the ICU. Peter and Ryan were side by side, pressing their faces against the window. Ryan was shorter, so he was on his tiptoes, craning his neck to see inside. I'm here. You can go home and rest, Peter said coldly. Ryan turned and glared at him, his hands flying in a sign that almost hit Peter in the face. He then furiously typed on his phone. You have some nerve. You're the one who got us kicked out of our place. Peter's face darkened. For the first time ever, he said quietly, I'm sorry. Ryan wasn't letting him off the hook. He kept typing. With every sentence, he jabbed Peter with his elbow to make him look. You kicked us out onto the street in the dead of winter. Richard's not strong. He gets sick every winter. How could you be so heartless? When those guys came to make trouble, you didn't help him. You just watched him get beat up. When he got arrested, you didn't speak up for him. You let him get locked up for over a month without his medicine. Did you know he's anemic? Without his medicine, he gets dizzy, he feels sick, he could die. The color drained from Peter's face. His tall frame seemed to collapse in on itself. He pressed his forehead hard against the door. I'm sorry, he mumbled as if to himself. I did try to help you. I paid the medical bills and asked someone to look after your food and living situation inside. Ryan kept typing. Yeah, you really looked after him. You made him move all those boxes by himself. Do you have any idea that the one thing a person with a single kidney can't do is strenuous labor? Were you trying to kill him? Peter's face was ashen. Only the rims of his eyes were red. He said nothing. He just stared, unblinking, at the person lying in the hospital room. A nurse came out. She handed a half piece of jade to Peter. I'm sorry, the red string broke during the emergency. The patient can't wear it right now anyway. You should hold on to it. As Peter reached for it, Ryan lunged, trying to snatch it away. He failed. He signed a string of curses at Peter's face. I sat on the hallway windowsill, chuckling to myself. As night fell, a man walked toward the entrance of the ICU hallway. He was tall and very handsome. He wore a white shirt and a camel-colored trench coat, gold-rimmed glasses, but his lips were pale and he didn't look well. Excuse me, the tall, handsome man said politely. Is the patient who just came out of critical condition, the one with Rh-negative AB blood, in there? Peter frowned at him. Ryan had already nodded. The man asked, May I see him? I floated in front of him. Do I know you? He didn't answer, but I found myself staring at his face, lost in thought. Strange. We've never met. But why does he look so familiar? Who are you? Peter asked warily. Why do you want to see him? I'm Dr. Julian Miles, a doctor from Northwood City General Hospital. I was here for a consultation today and happened to hear he was injured and needed a blood donation. He took a red string from around his neck. On the string was another half piece of jade. The person in there, he said, is very likely my brother. Unbelievable. If Gus and Caleb weren't both dead, I'd have sworn this was another trap someone had set for me. I floated in front of him and saw the half piece of jade in his hand. One look was all it took. My half and his half would fit together perfectly. They would form a complete jade pendant. Could he really be my brother? Impossible. Peter scowled, hiding the hand holding my piece of jade behind his back. Richard said he was abandoned as a baby. How could a brother just suddenly appear? What do you want? I'm also Rh-negative AB type. I just donated 400 cubic centimeters of blood to him, Julian said, his expression unchanging, his voice firm. My purpose is to save him. Peter was speechless. A shared blood type and half a piece of jade don't prove anything, he said coldly. Please leave, or I'll call security. Julian didn't back down. He stepped forward, looking Peter straight in the eye. And who are you? You're not the one who hurt him, are you? Ryan nodded emphatically beside them. Peter's face turned uglier than ever. Julian continued, My brother has a coin-sized, reddish-brown birthmark on the inside of his left ankle. I'm only here to confirm that. Holy crap, I have that birthmark. Exactly where he said it was. He's really my brother. I have a brother? I actually have a brother. Unlike my excitement, Peter looked furious. It was as if he had suddenly realized that something he thought belonged entirely to him actually belonged to someone else. He had seen the connection between the two pieces of jade right away, and he knew exactly where my birthmark was and how big it was. But he still tried to send Julian away. None of what you've said is proof. We'll have to wait for Richard to wake up and do a DNA test. I was pacing back and forth in a panic. I knew Peter too well. The moment Julian left, he would move me somewhere no one could ever find me. What do I do? Come on, brain. Think of something. Suddenly, a sharp alarm blared from the ICU. The monitor by the bed flashed red. Doctors and nurses rushed in, surrounding the bed and starting emergency procedures. I floated over. I saw the pale face on the bed. I knew why Julian looked so familiar. The two of us, we looked so much alike. I was still grinning like an idiot when a powerful force suddenly pulled at me. I opened my eyes, dizzy, to a white ceiling, and a circle of wide eyes staring down at me. Someone rushed to my side. It was Peter. He grabbed my hand, rambling on and on. I didn't want to hear a word of it. My gaze went past him, landing on the person behind him. I pulled my hand from Peter's grasp and reached for Julian. My lips moved under the oxygen mask, forming two barely audible words. My brother. When the DNA test results came back, Peter's face was even fouler than it was the day I woke up. Julian was my brother. It was true. He had me transferred to his hospital in Northwood City, saying it would be more convenient to take care of me. A lot of the young nurses came to see me. They said Dr. Miles had been searching for his brother for over a decade and had finally found him. They also said you could tell we were brothers just by looking at us, that we were equally handsome. I was so happy during that time I barely felt the pain. I would even grin through my teeth while they were changing my dressings. But Julian couldn't smile. He would look at my wound, his face cold as ice. Still smiling? The bullet grazed your kidney. Another inch over and I wouldn't have gotten to meet you, bro. I tried to cheer him up. That's why I'm happy. I'm so lucky I didn't die. And I have a brother who's as handsome and amazing as you. I've got to live a long time now. Julian paused what he was doing. He corrected me. A very long time. And don't let me ever hear you use the word die again. Yes, sir. Ryan knocked and came in. He pointed outside. I glanced at my brother's face but kept my own expression neutral. I knew Peter was out there. He had been standing guard outside my room, day and night, but he wasn't allowed in. My brother wouldn't let him. He had learned everything about me from Ryan, including how Peter had saved me and been injured for me in the crash. But family can't be objective. My brother still hated Peter. Don't even think about forgiving him, Julian said, expertly tying a bandage around my waist. Someone who truly loves you would never, ever hurt you. I smiled and nodded. I know, bro. It wasn't really about forgiveness. The history between me and Peter was too tangled. It was impossible to say who owed whom anymore. What I wanted to do now was say goodbye. It's time to say goodbye to the past, Julian said, looking me in the eye. When you're discharged, we'll go to the county clerk's office and change your name. Okay, I said, my eyes disappearing into a grin. My last name wasn't Keller. It was Miles. I liked this name. On the day I was discharged, Peter finally saw me at the door of my room. He had lost a lot of weight. His chin was covered in bluish stubble. Richard, he said, his eyes scanning me from head to toe. He managed a slight smile. Are your wounds healed? How are you feeling? Does it still hurt? Before I could answer, Julian said coldly, Mr. Thorne, please return to the south side. Don't block the way. My brother hasn't fully recovered yet. Standing for too long makes him dizzy. I was actually almost completely healed. My brother was just being overprotective. Earlier, he had wanted to get a wheelchair. Then he wanted to carry me to the car. I was too embarrassed and refused both. Peter looked like he wanted to say more, but the arrogance in his eyes was gone. He looked at me cautiously. He had changed. So had I. It's okay, bro, I said with a smile to Julian. I want to have a word with him alone. Julian said, okay. I'll put the luggage in the car and then come back for you. The doorway was quiet again. I looked straight at Peter's face and saw that his eyes were red. I'm sorry, Richard. I shouldn't have deliberately made things hard for you, kicked you out onto the street. I shouldn't have hurt you, shouldn't have failed to help you, shouldn't have. His voice trailed off. He took a couple of deep breaths before continuing. Can you give me a chance to make it up to you? Sunlight streamed through the hallway window, warm and relaxing. That kick you gave me didn't leave a scar. It stopped hurting a long time ago. And the scars I have now aren't all your fault, I said with a smile. Peter, I'm doing really well now, so I don't need you to make anything up to me. Peter's voice trembled. Can't we go back to how things were? A fat little bird was perched on a branch of the locust tree outside the window. I watched it and said, "But what was so great about the past? The future should be better, shouldn't it?" "Peter, my name isn't Richard Keller anymore. My last name is Miles. I was a Keller for 22 years. Do you know how much I hate that name? It was like a chain, constantly reminding me that I was raised by Gus Keller, that I was a punk with no future. As long as he was alive, no matter how hard I tried, I was always afraid he'd drag me back." I looked at Peter. "But things are different now. I found my brother, my name, and my future." Peter looked at me in pain. "Can't I be in your future?" he pleaded. "When I see you, I always think about the past." I smiled, a sense of peace washing over me. "Let's just leave it, Peter. My brother was right. Someone who truly loves you would never hurt you." But I didn't want to talk about love with Peter anymore. All I wanted now was a fresh start, to make a good living, to do what I want to do. Julian came back to get me. Peter followed us to the hospital entrance, keeping his distance. I got in the car. I saw him standing there in the cold wind, a lone figure. He became a smaller and smaller black dot. And then he disappeared. Epilogue. I spent almost a month recovering at my brother's house. My new ID and household registration book were processed. Julian clipped my new page into his book. "Richard Miles," he said. "Welcome home." I took it from him with a grin. I saw that there were more than just 2 pages. "Are these Mom and Dad's?" "Yeah," Julian said, sitting down next to me. "They were staying in a hotel out of town once. It was old and caught fire. After I handled their affairs, I kept these 2 pages from the book." My heart ached. "Was it because you were looking for me?" I asked. Julian was silent for a long time before he finally said, "Yes." He put his arm around my shoulder and gave it a gentle squeeze. "Don't be sad, Richard. Mom and Dad would be happy to see you home. It's not too late. It's not too late." Julian told me I was 6 months old when I was lost. My parents were too busy with work, so they hired a nanny from the countryside to take care of me. The nanny's family ran into financial trouble. She secretly took me out, intending to sell me, but no one would buy me. By then, my parents had already called the police. She got scared and didn't dare come back. So she just left me in some corner of the old city and ran. Sometimes fate is truly cruel. With a simple twist of fate, a person's entire life can be changed. But as long as you're alive, there's still hope to live the life you want. Julian said I should rest at home for a few more months before looking for a job. I didn't listen. I enrolled myself in an adult vocational program to study e-commerce operations. Then I started a small online store to practice and make money. In the second half of the year, I brought Ryan over. He manages the warehouse and handles shipping for me. By the time I graduated, I had already opened a second branch. As the business grew, I started traveling more for work. Several times, in different places, I saw a familiar figure, tall and thin, wearing black leather shoes and a black trench coat. Once, through the window of a coffee shop, I saw the setting sun fall on him, casting a long shadow on the ground. Separated by a wall of glass, we looked at each other from a distance. Let it be, I thought. Whatever was between Richard Keller and Peter Thorne was always destined to be nothing. Richard Miles doesn't need to be saved by anyone anymore. He has a future of his own.